My name is Kaipo McCartney, and I'm the chair of this year's Stewardship Committee. I'd like to spend a few moments talking to you about this year's Stewardship campaign. For those of you who aren't familiar with the concept, the Stewardship campaign is the church's opportunity to obtain a commitment from its parishioners on how much they intend to donate next year. The commitment takes the form of a pledge. And a pledge is just that. It's not a contract or a binding decision. It can be adjusted if circumstances change. The important part is that your pledge provides a number with which the vestry can plan. That planning translates into how the vestry operates the church. Our treasurer, Beth Addington, is here to give you more specifics on that process.
I'm here today to talk about what pledging means to basic operations at St. Michael's. And here's a spoiler alert, it's critical. So you may or may not remember last fall when we were gathered here in the sanctuary to kick off our stewardship campaign. And I had people stand up in the pews to physically demonstrate how much of our income comes from pledges, as well as how much of our expenses are covered by pledged dollars. So back in 2019, pledges and offerings accounted for 85% of our budgeted income. Well, now in 2020, pledges account for 95% of our budgeted income. So because of that, when COVID shut down the world as we knew it, the Finance Committee and I were really worried about how St. Michael's was going to pay for its must-do expenses, things like our insurance policy, or our utilities bills, or salaries, or maintenance contracts. These are all expenses that don't go away even when we're not meeting in person. Well, additionally, we worried that our other sources of income, like our yoga classes or our school break camps, etc., were going to completely go away, and they did. As it turns out, we didn't need to worry so much. In March and April, Will started getting calls from parishioners asking how they could best get their pledge payments to us, as well as letting him know that their pledge check was on its way. It was amazing. In fact, we even got a new 2020 pledge a few months after we stopped meeting in person. Again, absolutely amazing. And as your treasurer, I cannot thank you enough for your continued generosity and support, even when we have to go without all the community and camaraderie that comes with belonging to the St. Michael's Parish. Now, while we still have a few months left in 2020, it appears that strong member pledging is going to help St. Michael's end up on a strong financial ground. So let's take a look at our pledge data for 2020. First, I want to explain this graph as it contains two types of information. Our monthly pledge amounts, which is the vertical axis on the left side and corresponds to the gray and yellow bars, and our cumulative pledge amount, which is the vertical axis on the right side and corresponds to the red and blue lines that cross the chart. Now the gray bars show the amount of pledge dollars that we planned to receive every month this year based upon our 2020 budget. The yellow bars show the amount that we actually received up through August. Now look at the actual pledge dollars in March, April, May, and June, right in the middle of COVID. They are higher than our budgeted pledge amount and are a clear demonstration of the level of pledging commitment from our members. Now let's look at the cumulative pledging data. The blue line shows the cumulative pledges that we planned to receive over the course of the year based upon our 2020 budget. The red dashed line shows the total pledges that we actually received through August. Notice the red line moves above the blue line in May. And as of August, we have received 4% more pledges than we planned for in our budget. Now, based upon that pledge chart that you just saw, you might be asking yourself, our expenses should be lower since we're not meeting in person, so what's happening with all of that extra pledge dollars? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. As a reminder, our 2020 budget contains a deficit of more than $23,000. And while some expenses are lower than they would normally be, others are higher. For example, our budget didn't account for all of the mail that we're having to send out these days, or the cost of holding all of our meetings and gatherings virtually. And many of our expenses are set. They don't change based upon our gathering status. Additionally, the vestry made a commitment in 2020 to increase the percentage of our pledges that go to mission and outreach, and thank goodness they did. Now more than ever, those contributions have been important and needed this year. To date, we have distributed more than $16,000 to the greater Arlington community through local nonprofits like APA, ASPAN, AFAC, and Doorways. So let's take a look at our expense data for 2020. This graph shows our cumulative planned expenses for the entire year and our actual expenses through August. The orange line is our planned cumulative expenses based upon our 2020 budget. Notice the blue line. It shows our actual cumulative expenses so far and is below the orange line. That means we are spending less than we planned to so far this year. And this is due to a combination of lower expenses and careful spending by the vestry. Now look at the red dashed line. It shows the same cumulative pledge income data through August that we saw in the first graph. Notice that the red line, our actual income, is below the blue line, our actual expenses. That means that 100% of your pledge dollars are paying for St. Michael's expenses. That includes those must-do items as well as the uplifting expenses like community support through mission and outreach. If you attended the virtual town hall in September, you learned about upcoming parish and rectory expenses related to water leaks and way past due maintenance. These additional must-do expenses mean that your pledges in 2021 will be critical to maintain our property so that families in the future get to enjoy St. Michael's as we have. In summary, I want to stress how important pledging is for the continued financial health of our parish, especially in times when we have little or no other sources of income. And again, I want to thank you so very much for your support.
I hope this helps you see how meaningful your pledge is. Last year, the Stewardship Committee set a goal for increasing pledges that we thought would see us through the final stages of St. Michael's rector transition and establish a solid foundation from which to move forward. Unfortunately, next year, our expenses are going to increase and our income will drop. As our treasurer has mentioned, there are serious structural issues with the church and rectory. We've been deferring these issues for a while, but have reached a tipping point and must address them now. To pay for repairs, we're going to be taking out a loan, as well as withdrawing almost 40% from our endowment. In order to cover loan payments without impacting our mission and outreach, we'll need to increase our income by 5%. This is hard news to hear. I know the last year has presented struggles for all of us, and the Stewardship Committee is conscious of the challenges we've all been facing. This was the backdrop against which we picked our theme for this year.
Living God's truth, enough for all. Wondering what tomorrow will bring, and if you are up to the challenge, can feel overwhelming. Please prayerfully reflect on what you can offer. Reach for God and know God's truth. You are enough. God is enough. There is and will be enough. And one final note. When you receive this year's pledge package, you'll see we've enclosed a card printed with the following. Through these uncertain times, God has given me enough. Please provide a word or two in response. Take a picture of yourself with it and email the picture to me, Will, or Beth.
I have a feeling we'll be astounded and uplifted by your revelations. Thank you.